In the design and construction industry, relationships are everything. Most of us want to assume that it just comes naturally, but what we start to find out time after time is that you're in a great relationship with an employee or even a customer, and you see there's a whole lot more potential, but you walk away frustrated because you didn't reach the outcome or the results that you know you could have received. Today, we're going to cover what we believe to be the most critical part of a great relationship in any meaning relationship. Could be at home, at work, or with a client. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm Dwayne Abels, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. We're in the middle of a podcast series that will hopefully help you get the most out of and maximize the relationships in your life, both at work and at home. Joining me again today is Dr. Charlie Cartwright. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here.
So we started this series, this is the second part of the series, and in last week we talked about initiating relationships and that first step of a critical connection. So if you notice, we're not obviously sitting in the studio. We're coming to you from the Gaylord in Denver at the DBI National Conference. And what's really interesting about the timing of the series is we're literally in the middle of watching hundreds of people start to initiate new relationships. So it's kind of fun to see who's making those connections and are they following some of the steps that we believe are really critical to developing relationships.
Yeah, it's been outstanding. And to your point, it's just interesting to watch all the interactions and see how people connect.
Yeah.
And that's the starting point for all the great things that happen within relationships.
Well, I'm excited about the second step that we're going to cover today. I do want to acknowledge just for a minute that it's literally 6 a.m. here in Denver. And we have a whole crew of people here from Harp and Sling. Took a lot of people getting up this morning to make this happen, which we're extremely grateful for. But I do want to admit, we did hit the gym.
We did. It's true.
Dr. Charlie's getting me on track. So, all right, Dr. Charlie, so walk us through what that second critical indicator is. Might be good for just to give us a quick rerun on the first one to tee up the second one.
Exactly. So connection's so critical in that first element, that key leadership indicator, because without connection, we don't get to the second step ever. We've got to find a way to connect to our clients, to our people. And one of the best ways to do that is just demonstrating genuine interest in that individual. Now, once we've established that connection, we've established some common ground, then the next step in that evolution is trust, right? Trust is foundational to any and every meaningful relationship. Without trust, there is no meaningful relationship.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I find that to be really true. You know, when we're in a conference environment, or here at the trade show at the DBA, and you run across so many people, you run across a few people where you're like, I know we could help that leader and his team or her team, and you walk up, you try to connect, and then you can feel you just blew it, right? And so taking advantage of each opportunity and making sure that we're maximizing that is something I think we all genuinely are trying to do and care about. So I think that's something that we have to be more cognitively aware of.
Yeah, big time. And it's one of these things to where there's a key element in trust that people fail to recognize a lot of times, and it's this: trust is transferable. Okay, so meaning that you trust your mechanic, and I say, hey, Dwayne, I'm having car problems. You're going to recommend that mechanic to me, and since I trust you, that trust transfers to that mechanic or that dentist, that doctor, right? So the same thing when we're building relationships with our team, with our people, we start to build trust relationships with those members. Then they have people on the team that trust them. The trust they have in you transfers to your team. And so that's really, that propagation is huge.
Yeah. So let's talk about two scenarios. Scenario one is, looking for some direction here, is what are some of the things that we as leaders can do to quickly build trust with, say, a new employee? And then the second one is, let's look at a scenario where maybe like we're here at the DBI National Conference, and the second scenario would be is how can we quickly build trust with someone that's brand new to us, and we're maybe into the first 2 minutes of a conversation, our first conversation with that prospective client.
That's awesome. So with that first one, you have a new employee, they're going to be very observant, right? And so there's this thing called consistent intensity. that's so critical in trust, because they're watching how you've interacted with them and how you interact with others. So they're looking for consistency on your part. And here's what I mean by consistent intensity is when someone makes a mistake, we immediately follow up, right? We've got to correct that error on time. But when they do the right thing, where's the immediacy?
Yeah.
Where's the intensity level? And so we've got to have that same level of intensity. We got to be just as fired up when people do the right thing as when they do the wrong thing. And what we'll find is that we're fired up and pumping our team up a lot more often than we have to get after them. So consistent intensity is a big part of that. And so employees look for that consistency in our interactions, not only with them, with other team members.
Great point. I was on a phone call, our video conference last week with an executive that we work with in a construction company, and he was having me to review his script that he was walking through with some of his critical direct reports. And he was extremely fired up about how well they've performed and some of the great things that they've done this year. He talked about a few things that they handled really well. And he said to me, I feel like I'm missing something. And my point back to him was, I think a lot of what you're communicating in this review, this evaluation, is solid. But at the end of the day, I know you genuinely love them more than you love their production at work, because you ask them about their family all the time. And we had just mentioned to him, you might want to consider before you get into the whole evaluation, in order to build trust, you might want to just stop and ask, how is your spouse? How are your kids? What's going on with those particular situations? I think it's really easy for leaders to get caught up in what we're there to deliver and do and build versus what those folks are really all about.
100%. You know, how are you is a great lead in before we ask what you do or what you've done.
Right.
Yes. How are you? Let's get that out of the, because we might need to deal with that immediately, right? Lend support, effort, suggestions, things like that. So that's really huge there. Yeah. It's a great point.
So the second scenario, again, getting some direction from you. What are some things that we could practically do to build trust with a prospect in a scenario like we're in right now?
Well, transparency is the currency of trust, okay? So we've got to be very transparent in who we are. We can't put on an air to pretend to be someone or someone we're not. So being authentic is huge. And then we've all heard how important eye contact is. However, do we know how good our eye contact is? How solid it is? Because that's a great way to make connection. And one of the great ways to test yourself on this is when you walk away from a conversation, you should be able to tell someone else what the eye color of that individual is. When you know what their eye color is, and you've made great contact, right? And then they know that you are paying attention and listening to them. You're not looking around the room. You're not looking at your phone. You are focused in on them.
So we have some new people that we've brought in to Pioneer IQ, and they're here at the conference with us. And one of the things that I'm able to do this time, maybe now more so than normal, is really evaluate how well they're connecting and how well they're building trust. And one of the things that it's reminded me of is just the intent focus in a new relationship when you're trying to build trust on them and their business and what they're challenged with and what they're going through. You know, it's really easy for us to get focused on talking about ourselves or talking about our clients or talking about our business or talking about our families, because we all want to talk about that. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that really builds as much trust as them realizing how significantly you care about them and their business, their challenges, and how you can help.
100% of the time, when the individual you're wanting to make a connection with and build trust, 100% of the time, when they've spoken more than you, it's going to be a better interaction, 100% of the time. And when we're too quick to jump in with the solution, or too quick to jump in with our expertise, we take the focus away from them and bring it back to us. And we really want the focus to be on the individual that we're building that relationship with, or building that trust with.
I can tell you, I can really relate to this because sometimes I just have a hard time shutting up. I mean, I get really excited about that person and what they're doing and realizing how we could potentially help them or help them understand something that a client's done to fix that problem. And at the end of the day, sometimes just shutting up's better than offering a lot of that in those early moments of your relationship.
Absolutely. And everyone's a little bit nervous, you know, when there's a new interaction, a new introduction like that. So just relaxing into it and really asking that individual meaningful questions and letting them relate their answers back to you, not interrupting, staying silent, staying engaged is the best route.
Absolutely. So this is not something that you perfect. I think it's a It's a practice, right? And so especially in the whole conversation of realizing that there are 7 of these indicators, we've talked about 2, connecting and building trust. But at the end of the day, it's really just about practicing the thoughts here and not trying to be a perfectionist at it. So hopefully you've picked up a few things that'll help you develop your leaders, scale and build your business, or maybe even figure out how to get deeper into the needs of some of the clients and prospects in your marketplace. Now more so than ever, people are desperately needing leadership. You being the one that we're talking to, us being the ones that we're talking to, have the courage to lead on.